How's it going, softball fans? We're back at it. Adam Paul, Braden Soprano here at Helix High School, where they're currently playing Torrey Pines. Pretty big game here in the Falcon tournament. What have you seen so far?
Both teams pretty evenly. It sounds like Torrey Pines, from what I've observed since we've started setting up, is they've gotten a couple hits. It looks like Helix has had a couple shots to threaten to score, just couldn't convert. Pretty evenly matched game here.
Yeah, like we were saying before the game, records are pretty similar. They beat kind of similar teams, lose to similar teams. It's going to be a great matchup as it plays out, and we'll be sure to post you the score as soon as this game is final. But we missed a week with spring break and things happening where we had to do other stuff. But give us real quick a recap of what has happened over the last week and a half.
A new contender has kind of come into play here in the Open/Division I. Poway, they've really risen up the ranks there. They're undefeated at 11-0-1. They've kind of gotten into the top five here in San Diego. Between them, San Marcos, Cathedral, Mater Dei, and now Poway, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be it's very evenly matched, and of all the sports I've covered so far this year, all of them have been so evenly matched in the top 10 in San Diego because so many great athletes played down here in the San Diego section. So let's get to our top 10. A couple teams that are just on the bubble, Scripps Ranch and Steel Canyon. What can you say about these two programs?
Scripps Ranch, they beat Eastlake 13-2 a few days ago. They're a hard team to figure out. They beat a top team, and then they'll lose to a team they shouldn't lose to. Steel Canyon, they lost to University City the other day, 4-3 in the latter innings. They're another team, that has the potential to play. Their pitching is gonna be on their pitching because they can hit. So when they get in the league in a couple weeks, that's going to be really interesting to see how they do.
Let's go into the bottom 5 of our top 10. Mission Hills, Mount Carmel, Claremont, Carlsbad, and Eastlake. Eastlake and Carlsbad have been there before, but Claremont, Mount Carmel, and Mission Hills, 3 new teams that have risen in. Granite Hills has fallen, and Bonita Vista has fallen. What can you say about a couple of these teams that are just cracking the top 10 so far this season?
With Mission Hills, you have Aria Quiones and the crew. They're heating up right now. They're in Division III. They'll be one of the favorites to contend for a Division III title this year. I think they'll do pretty well. Mount Carmel, a team that's kind of risen to the top here. They're in Division II. They'll give Santana a run for their money, for Division II. So look out for the Sun Devils. Claremont, another Division II team. There'll be another team to contend for that Division II title. See it when it comes to CIF. It's pretty evenly matched softball so far here in the last couple weeks of San Diego. You just don't know who's gonna show up again. Like we've talked about before, it's all about the matchups.
All about the matchups, pitchers, way you hit, slumps. There's so many streaks in baseball and softball. It's good to see Claremont make the top 10 after just being 11 couple weeks, week after week. Good for those girls. Carlsbad, again, a team that's been able to move up. Eastlake, like we were saying, can't really understand Eastlake. They beat Cathedral Catholic 1-0, and then they lose to Scripps 12-3 or whatever you're saying. So,
it's just weird. Carlos Arias from SoCal Sidelines, him and I were talking. He's like, what's going on? I can't figure. They're a hard team to figure out. It's just a lot of these teams down here in San Diego are hard to figure out. It's all about the matchups, like who pitches one day, who doesn't pitch the other day. I mean,
who's on their game, who's not, sort of thing. So, so that's the bottom half of the top 10. Top 5 rather. Santana's 11-2 right now. Mater Dei, Poway, Cathedral Catholic, and San Marcos. Nothing really's changed here except for Poway. Jumping up. What can you say about the teams in the top 5?
Santana, since the coaching change, since the resignation of John Fela, Heather Arnold, who's taken over, she's done really well with the Sultans. They've won 4 in a row since her 4 or 5 games in a row now since taking over. They play Vista tomorrow in a makeup game, I believe for the Hilltop tournament, I think it was. Could be wrong. So pardon me if I'm wrong on that.
There's so many tournaments going on right now, it like interlapping that it's hard to stay focused on one.
And then of course they start league in a couple weeks against West Hills. Mater Dei, that's another team. They've got some injuries going on right now. Hopefully they'll get all their players healthy for when league starts. They're up right now in the Michelle Carew Classic, just like Poway, or not? Not Poway. Poway and Cathedral are up there as well. So we'll see how they do up there this weekend. Again, they'll contend for the Open Division as well.
So you look at the top 5, and San Marcos, they can hit, and they hit a ton of home runs. Cathedral Catholic, they can pitch, and they got one of the best pitchers, if not in San Diego County, in Southern California, maybe in the western United States. And then Poway kind of does a little bit of everything. So it's going to be a fun play. As this thing plays out, it's going to be fun to watch. So
Poway's, with Poway, they've won 10 games in a row now. Colleen Sullivan, UCLA bound, they have her. Also, Stanford commit Sydney Steele. They're just tearing it up. If I was coaching and there was an open base, I wouldn't pitch to them. That's just my opinion. Strategy-wise, with Colleen hitting over 600 for the month of March, 8 or 9 home runs. She knocked in over 20 runs. I mean, it's just phenomenal. She plays catcher, and I saw she threw out about 8 or 9 runners as well. Like I said, Poway, a team to watch. Definitely to prepare for when it comes to playoff time.
All right, let's get to our shout-outs before we get into our game picks. Alexa Neal is my first shout-out. Senior second baseman for Ramona, leads batting average category, stolen bases, and doubles. 667 batting average, 14 stolen bases, 14 doubles. Great start to the first half of the season for her. The other two shout-outs I'm going to have are Alexis Orozco and Cindy Sanders. 2 girls for San Marcos. They're tied for 6 home runs, tied for the lead for their team lead as well as the section lead. So 2 shout-outs to those girls as well. And then Cedrina Rodriguez, a junior at Southwest El Centro, is second in strikeouts behind Megan Faremo, but I said we weren't going to talk about her again because we can talk about her every week, and she has 136 strikeouts on the year. Cedrina Rodriguez does out there in El Centro.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny you mention her because she's also one of my shout-outs. Her and Carlos Arias and I, he was at, we were talking about, her and a couple of the other players out there in the desert. They don't get a lot of looks. It's like, what's going on down there, Rodriguez, she, even though she has a 3-3 record, she's 13-1. I do apologize. 13-1, a 1.76 ERA. Overall, the Eagles out there are 16-4. She's doing wonders out there. So if you're a college coach, I'd be looking at her, whether it be a JC or, she can definitely play at the next level at, Division I, Division II, or whatever. Because even Carlos Arias was like, she's a heck of a player, and it's crazy that she's not on anybody's radar. Another shout out of mine is Shannon McMahon from Christian. They did really well in that spring jamboree out in Las Vegas last week or so. She went 9 for 17 over that tournament. Has scored 4 runs. Drove in 7 RBIs, including the game-winning. Even had the game-winning hit and scored to drive in the game-winning run against San Benito. She was also a big component in the big upset of number 9. The Etiwanda Eagles out of the Inland Empire. That was a big upset that Christian had. And then my couple others, Mount Carmel, JoJo, and I hope I'm pronouncing this last name right, Abrio, I hope. So I do apologize if
we mispronounce any of your names.
No, and she's been doing really well. She went 6 for 8 with the Grand Slam last week, 5 runs, 6 RBIs in wins against Helix, Mission Hills, and Mount McGill. She's one of the big proponents of why Mount Carmel is going to be a Division II contender this year. Again, my other shout out is Katie Dobbs for Granite Hills. Despite the 3-3 record, she has 57 Ks in 31 2/3 innings, a minuscule 1.11 ERA. Also had a 2-run home run against Patrick Henry to help propel the Eagles to that win against the Patriots the other day. She's having a phenomenal year, splitting time, obviously, with Stacey Chambers. So big shout out to you, Katie. Good luck to you.
Let's get to our game picks. These games are either Friday, Saturday, or next Monday. Yeah. First game of our game picks, Christian at Mira Mesa. 9-6 Christian taking on 5-3-1 Mira Mesa. Game's at 3:30 tomorrow. Who do you got in this game?
I'm going to go with Christian just because, just from what I've seen, I think they've played a little bit tougher competition. So Christian is my pick.
Oh, the East County guy with another East County team. Remember that happened to you last time? You still owe me a burrito, by the way. Yeah. I'm also going to take Christian, though. I'm going to jump on the East County bandwagon with that one. Claremont at Escondido. Newly top 10 Claremont team against a pretty good record Escondido team at 8-4. That game's at 3:30 tomorrow as well. You got the Chieftains or you got the Cougars?
I'm gonna take Claremont just because I having seen both teams play. Claremont to me is played against the tougher competition, and Jacobs, I think, with her pitching, is the X factor right there.
I'm going to take the Claremont Chieftains as well. Saturday, Central at Mount Carmel. Team from out in the valley, like we were talking about, not getting a lot of looks. They're 9-4, and they travel to Mount Carmel, who's 10-2 or 8-2. Just recently added to the top 10. Yeah. Sun Devils or Spartans. I'm going to go with the Sun Devils.
I'm going to go with Mount Carmel also, just because that long bus ride for Central. It's a 120-mile, round trip or whatever it is. I think that has an effect on some desert teams. But Mount Carmel, they've only given up 4 runs in the last few games since losing to Santana. Again, I just think the bats of Mount Carmel are going to be the big difference there.
That's a tough travel game. We'd go out to Imperial Valley, or you come back or to replay in San Diego, rather, as an Imperial team. That's always a tough trip, especially for high school kids. So I'm going to agree with you. I got the Sun Devils, like I said earlier. All right, so last game we're going to pick Grossmont, Mission Hills. Got a pretty similar record. Grossmont's 10-4. Mission Hills is 9-4. Game's at 3:30 on Monday at Mission Hills. Foothillers, I know East County. All right, East County Foothillers or North County Mission Hills. Who are you going to go with?
Well, Grossmont, they're pretty well rested up. They had some this past week. So that does help. With both teams evenly pretty matched. We have Ari Quiones from Mission Hills. For Grossmont, you have Kimmy Bond there up at the top. She leads that offense. Really leads that offense. I'm going to give the Foothillers a small edge. I just think it's going to all depend on how Samaria Roop does in the circle for them as well. And if, that offense for Grossmont can continue to score runs. So I'm going to go with the Foothillers.
How typical of you. You picked every game we picked that's East County. Adam Paul has to take the East County team. Didn't work out for you the first time because you owe me a burrito. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to take Mission Hills for the only reason that I'm going to be different than you. And I don't not like the East County because I do love the East County. My family's from East County, but I do love just, when you pick East County and I don't, and it just backfires in your face. Just like I'm sure people enjoy when I pick Cathedral and they lose. I know Hassine enjoyed that. I know Davis enjoyed that, and I know Adam would probably enjoy that as well. So let's get back. It was 1-1 when we started this thing. All of a sudden, Torrey Pines going up to a 5-1 lead, so we got a little bit of catching up to do. But Adam, any last words before we send them off to the next week?
No, I just think it's another week of awesome competition out here in San Diego for softball. League starts. League's already kind of started for some teams. I know in the ever competitive Grossmont district,
the ever competitive Grossmont district.
The Hills is actually the second toughest league in San Diego, and it starts next week. So it's going to be really interesting. So hopefully, a lot of these teams can get healthy for their league season coming up.
It's going to be a great league action for East County, North County, South Bay's even got a lot of good teams, and we can't wait to get started with league play because league play happens and then all of a sudden it's playoff time. Absolutely. And there's a lot of matchups that can happen in the playoffs that we are very looking forward to. So for Adam Paul, I'm Braden Soprenet. We'll see you guys next week on the Softball Podcast.